is a live show, and that's what happens in a live show. We have gone down, we suspect. This has happened a couple of times before. One time happened when we were playing Shag, Marry, Chop, and we apparently were going to kill somebody as a choice that we shouldn't, and the Secret Service was knocking on Power's door the next day. And that's one thing that happened. And coincidentally, we're talking about black homophobia, and Facebook comes down again. So we're not quite sure what happened, but we are working on it now. We are going to move on to our next segment, which is about rainbow capitalism. And rainbow capitalism talks about our excitement about the corporate embracement of the gay community, our prides, Stonewall, etc. But we may be doing it to excess. And we show you this slide in terms of rainbow capitalism. And to set up this segment, we want to have you see a very interesting conversation about something that happened in Los Angeles Pride last week and observations about rainbow capitalism. Watch this.
It's all about the almighty dollar. I experienced this firsthand yesterday when I was at LA Pride, and it was so overwhelming because the rainbow capitalism, as I would refer to it as, was intense. The reality is that people have to realize corporate structures are not social justice entities, and so they're going to prioritize profit over people. And so when you look at the LGBTQ community, for instance, in 2017, we know that the spending power was at $917 billion. Since then, it's rose to well over $1 trillion. Yet people like the transgender community on a national average make less than $10,000 a year.
That's right.
So when you're looking at the way that they show up to Pride and when they're showing what this diversity looks like, we make up less than 0.3% of the population, and yet none of their efforts are geared toward us because they see there's no value there. There's no any exchange. And so whereas poor LGBTQ people in middle America and rural areas, their big picture is survival. And because the corporations are leading that narrative, their big picture is sunbathing in the south of France with this amazing airline and hotel package from We Love Gay People, Inc. You know, and so I think that that's an example of how corporations step in to serve their own interests, but not necessarily the needs of the community directly impacted by their presence.
Do you see these major companies as exploiting the progress toward tolerance, or do you ever see them as catalysts for that type of progress?
I definitely think, I don't know that I would necessarily demonize commerce in general. There are a lot of benefits and opportunities for historically disenfranchised communities to build equity through those structures of business. However, I think there should definitely be some sort of regulation, which is why I'm excited about presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren and the way that she's been going after big corp, big banks, big tech, and holding them accountable, because people will do what you allow them to get away with.
Very complicated issue. We need your money. We don't want your money. That really is at the heart of it. What is right and what is wrong? And as we start the conversation, I can't wait for Erin to pull out her Converse again. Who? His Converse again. I apologize.
Oh, we need a counter for that.
Yeah, that needs a counter. But pull out the Converse because it's well, it's out of rainbow capitalism because you have customized it.
Right. Well, and also because, you know, it's finally trans walking on rainbow for once in a blue moon instead of the other way around. So.
Great.
Oh.
But, what do y'all think about rainbow capitalism?
It's a two-sided thing because there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? Every corporation is doing something bad somewhere, and if you don't like this one, well, they also own the organic, free-range, SJW, pro-diversity version of the same product. You're giving your money ultimately to the same people in the end. That being said, though, there is something to be said for using our community to further your own causes and not giving back to that community. You know, the world shut us out. So we made our own world. We made our own clothes, our own books, our own magazines, our own shows, our bars, our nightclubs, our everything, our own culture, our own rules, our own pageants, crowns. And now, because we had all that disposable income and nothing but time to make it fabulous, now the world that kicked us out wants back in all of a sudden. And now they want to cash in on those rainbow dollars.
And it's expensive, girl.
Right. There's money to be made off of us.
You were
and you can do that in a way that you also uplift that community, or you can do it in a way that you just use us as a pawn.
That's exactly the thing, is if you also uplift the community. Because I've realized in the past couple of weeks, seeing the pride flag, the rainbow flag, in so many different brands that I already participated in, maybe I like those brands, at least a part of me, in some part of my mind, because this whole time they actually were fostering an environment of support for me. Maybe it's not always apparent except in Pride Month on the 50th year of Stonewall, but maybe it's something that's always been there and that they've actually catered toward me in a really smart way.
It's an interesting observation. Let me refocus the question. How do we balance our need to represent ourselves if we're going to march down Broadway next week? That's going to cost $1 million.
Yeah.
Where does the $1 million come from to give us the visibility to march down Broadway?
Well, I mean, we've been funding our own prides for all of this time until, before corporations started getting on board. The only reason that we need millions and billions of dollars is because we need room for all those big corporations to ride their pride floats. So when it's grassroots money, it's going to be a grassroots event. When it's corporate money, it's going to be a corporate event. So it's going to look like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Great, well and good. But what are those corporations doing at the end of the day? Are they taking from us and only taking from us? Or are they actually doing something that's causing positive change?
And you're saying
It's
something
a two-sided thing.
I mean, once again, like I said with the whole Taylor Swift thing, one hand washes the other. I'm on a pride committee, and I know that, and Sean Palacios is on a few pride committees.
I've served myself.
And I know that every pride committee, it's damn if you do and damn if you don't.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, the pride committees themselves want bigger and better festivals, and to do that, you want to get corporate sponsors, and the corporate sponsors mean what have you. What I would like to draw attention to is, however, what I don't really like, what I hate, is when rainbow flag waving corporations, they give money to anti-gay politicians. When I say rainbow waving flag corporations, they're the same corporations you'll see in our gay prides and our gay festivals, but at the same time, they're giving money to anti-LGBT.
I think that's a little bit different, because if we open the ability to have a pride event and we have sponsorships and we have rainbow capitalism come in, it is, and of course you already know this, but it's impossible to modify their speech. And the Supreme Court has already ruled that money is speech. And so you can contribute your money as a corporation to anything you want, and that is free speach. So a rainbow...
And we can choose not to take those dollars.
Yes, okay, fine, you can do whatever you want, but that doesn't mean it has to be received. They can distribute. That doesn't mean that we're obligated to receive. When you have like.
Do you think that a pride or a major pride organization would say, "No, I'm sorry, Chick-fil-A, you can't be in the parade"?
I think they should.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
Okay. Wait.
I think they should.
That's not my question. We're probably all on that same page. But I challenge you on the specific question of, if Chick-fil-A said to Stonewall, "We would like a float in the parade to support your march for 50 years. We don't agree with you in any way, but we will spend $25,000 to put our float in the parade." What would New York Pride say? What would World Pride say?
I would hope that they would say no.
I bet they wouldn't.
Well, then that's one parade I wouldn't be at.
Well, and here's the thing
That's
about
one
that.
parade
They
I wouldn't be
absolutely
at,
should say
because
yes.
you cannot on the one hand, I would not want to be at a pride where I know on the one hand part of the pride is being funded by the same group or the same corporation that is funding something else that is going against me.
Oh, that's also the
Completely.
same group that supported the victims and the people that were involved in Pulse. It's not like they just do bad things for the gay community. Chick-fil-A has actually been a supporter of the LGBTQ community in other assets, in
Have
other
they?
spaces. Yes,
In different ways. They were a big supporter of Pulse. They did lots of fundraising
And
efforts for
that's-
Pulse. Their nuance is it's a delicate balance, and well, I'll pull us off the conversation, which I don't think we should do. My observation to you of question is, let me add, I don't think a pride organization would say no to Chick-fil-A in the parade. First and foremost, it would make national news. Because if we said no to Chick-fil-A's participation in the parade, how
We're
is that
racist.
any different than the restaurateur that does it on religious freedoms saying, I can't allow a cake to be made?
Because
for
the
you?
cake that's being made is to service somebody, is to go to service somebody that would like to buy or purchase that cake. Somebody offering to donate something is not doing it because they want a service. They're offering to do it so that they can
That's
just
not
get
true,
the
Power.
visibility in
we
the
did,
parade.
We did the Stonewall Parade. No person, no corporation, no decision maker owns that street that the parade was on. That is a public street. So if Chick-fil-A wants to be in the parade, I think I would argue that legally nobody could stop them from being in that parade because it's a public event. As long as they pay their money just like X or Y or Z, they're in the parade.
Well,
It's a
there-
public event.
I don't know about that. That's something I would have to do some research and find out, because what you're telling me is that the organizers of the Pride Parade would have no choice but to take their.
I don't think that they could stop
that.
Well, the
take their
LGBT
donation, and I don't
community
believe
has
that. I don't believe that
a
at all.
very long way to go, and it's probably going to be in our best interest to sit down at the table with those who want to give us money. Because listen, guys, we have something to say. Our community gets to be normalized in this life. We don't have to continue celebrating pride festivals and getting corporate sponsorship to have our right that each and every one of us who pay taxes, guys, the gay community pays taxes. You guys get that, right? You are a part of the economic stability of this country. Regardless of whether or not we have corporate sponsors, we have a voice. And if it takes corporate sponsors, maybe conscious corporate sponsors, we can create that distinction to get our point across and normalize our lives and take all of us out of the closet
When those
and
corporations,
take back our
though-
rights that we have, then
Okay.
let's be smart about
That's,
it.
I mean, and the pageantry is great, but when those corporations are giving that kind of money to homeless LGBT people, or when they're giving that kind of money to LGBT youth,
Let's help
and
them
funding those
redirect it.
programs,
They
when they are
have
funding those kind of
no-
programs that actually uplift community members in the communities they live in, then
They
that's
have
a
no
different thing.
requirement. That is a wish.
This is an investment. This
I
is an
understand.
advertising investment to
That
be part
is
of
a
Pride.
wish.
And you know what? That might be something that while we're all sitting on pride committees, maybe that's something that we add to the conversation.
I know, that's what's
that would-
unfolding right in front of me.
You know,
I never
so
thought about
so
it
what
that
if
way.
that was a conscious effort that we were taking some
Right,
of that
and
part
what
of that
if-
corporate
and a good
money
answer to what
and
if-
redirecting it?
And a good answer to what if is what happened 2 years ago with the Black Pride 4 in, I believe it was Ohio, who tried to have that conversation, who wanted 7 minutes of silence for Philando Castile and a discussion on the Pride Committee about the racist corporate sponsors. And they were spit on, they were booed, they had,
By
they
who?
had their, by the parade goers, by the gays in the gay community there.
Interesting. Please allow me to make the observation. I wonder, as we talk about this, I realize we've got to explore this more because of the passion that I'm hearing come out here. We have to explore it more because perhaps we're our own worst enemy. The corporation, Chick-fil-A or Bank of America, has no obligation to do what you ask for at all. Zero. No obligation at all. If they want to spend their money on whatever they want to spend their money on, they can. And nobody
And
can
that's
tell
fine,
them
but I don't
otherwise.
have to sing their praises
Let
for
me
it.
finish. Okay, well then
Right.
don't come to the parade.
I'll come
Well,
to
the
the parade.
issue-
I'll
said.
come to the
The
damn parade, but I don't
issue
have to sing their
is,
praises, just
let
like I don't
me-
have to applaud for the cops, just like I don't have to applaud for Bank of America.
Okay,
There's
don't
no
applaud
difference.
for them. But let me give you a different example at the other extreme.
But they're not going to come in and say that
In
now I
Stonewall
shouldn't be at
on
my pride
Saturday,
parade
at
because
the
they
parade
showed up.
that you were very happy to sit at and talk about, everybody that came by, those sponsors that really ultimately paid for that event, they enclosed for security 8 blocks or 10 blocks of that and asked $5 to come in. There was huge uproar from the gay community to pay $5 to pay for their own security.
Which is why I said-
Ultimately, who
That's
pays
another
for it?
conversation,
I
though,
know,
Al.
but it is. But I'm only putting in front of us. Ultimately, the sponsorship of the rainbow capitalism is what pays for most of the operation of Pride. If they ask me to pay for it, my answer as gay guy will be no.
Okay, right.
I'm a receipt taker, and I am definitely going to find out exactly
Good.
what, as
Good.
far as what Al said, that the gay committees are obligated to take, because for that, what you're trying to tell me is
Jared
if-
Courage.
if
I was
the-
just going to
Jared
say,
Courage.